Good morning, everyone. We're getting ready to get started here in just a moment. Getting everyone admitted. As we're admitting everyone, if you would mute your video and your sound, and that will just ensure a smooth presentation for everyone. We can limit the background noise. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So good morning again, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Deanne Crane, and I am the Program Manager for the Safety Council, and I am your moderator for today. And I want to welcome you, and we are pleased to be able to offer transportation safety, changing norms, and decreasing risk. Just a couple of quick items before I introduce our presenter. You do have the capability to ask questions using the chat function, and we will address those questions at the end of the presentation. Again, as you're joining us, if you don't have your audio or your video set to mute, if you'll do that now to just ensure a smooth presentation for all. And then at the end of the presentation, we will have a quick evaluation that will be posted in the chat. And that will help us with future presentations and resources and things like that. So just make sure as you're editing out that you will take advantage of that quick evaluation. I want to welcome our presenter this morning, and that is Cindy Leonard. She is our Senior Program Manager with the National Safety Council and the Texas Our Driving Concern Program. Cindy works with employers to grow their knowledge of key components in roadway safety, and she has more than 20 years of education with an emphasis on behavior change. And so with that, I welcome Cindy, and I turn it over to her to begin.
Thank you, Deanne, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about this topic because what we're learning from our recent data suggests that while people know better, they don't always do better. And part of that change can be effective when you engage in connecting with your employees and your workers and your drivers to share how you've changed your habits to become a safer driver and how they can do it too. And we're going to get specific in some ways, and we're going to share some of the compelling data that suggests we need to do more of that. But first, I just want to thank Deanne Crane for being my partner in crime, as it were, with not only coordinating and bringing this webinar to you, but she's also really a very key part of getting a presentation like this off the ground. We go back and forth with ideas, and we really collaborate to bring a new presentation like this to you. So thank you, Deanne, for that. And with that, I'll go right into the next slide. If it will allow me to. All of our technical tests worked, and now here we go. So this first slide is really emblematic of what gets safety people out of bed and gets them compelled to work on making our roadways safer. What you see here is the most recent crash data report from Texas, showing that, and I've circled over on the side, that our per 1 million miles driven in Texas has become more deadly. From 2019 to the data collected in 2020, we see that the ratio of deaths that we're losing per 100 million miles is increasing. And that's exactly what we don't want to see. We're of the mindset that no traffic death is acceptable, and that we can reach a zero death rate within the next few decades. And to do that, we're going to need to change how we look at why people are dying on our roads and what changes need to happen from structure to engineering to law enforcement and to education components. And that's where you come in as well. So if this is getting you upset as it is me, then let's work on how we can drive down this ratio and eliminate those deaths overall. So I'm going to ask you now to share in the chat, what do you see people doing on the roadways? And we'll try to incorporate some of that discussion as we go. So what are you seeing on the roadways? What are people doing? Particularly maybe in the last year and a half, maybe you've seen a climb in some specific driving risky behaviors, but maybe you've seen these behaviors before as well. You're just seeing them more elevated at this point. So one of the things that we know is happening, and this data is only as current as 2019, is we know that when speed is applied to any situation on the roads, fatality rates increase. And this occurs within our vehicles and also outside of our vehicles. And as we'll see here in this slide, we have to be compelled to be interested in the fact that as speed has gone up, we have seen more pedestrian fatalities result as well. Those are those outside the vehicle fatalities that I just mentioned. You can see here that when a driver of any vehicle goes faster, more pedestrians are going to die if they collide with that vehicle. And it's a substantial amount, just 10 miles over or 10 miles under creates a bigger or a smaller proportion of deaths expected. And you know, we know that this is also compounded by the fact that vehicles are higher off the ground than they used to be. They're heavier. So there's some engineering factors that play in here. But when the pedestrian roadway deaths totals are higher than they've been in 40 years, it's time for us to bring that conversation, relate it back to speed, and see what we can do. And you know, one of the things that Deanne and I uncovered when we started looking at this is something you may already be familiar with, and that is that people overestimate the time that they're going to actually save by speeding. And I'll just give you a quick math example. If you are traveling 100 miles and you increase your speed from 75 miles to 80 miles per hour, that small increase is going to just impact your journey by about 5 minutes. And that's if all conditions are all the same, which of course we can't control all conditions that you'll run into. Meanwhile, the impact gets substantially more dangerous every 10 miles per hour, and that's with any collision. So if you want to get there faster, that's really not going to be the safest way to go. If you are increasing from 75 miles per hour to 80 miles per hour, you're not saving a whole lot of time in the context of your day. The better idea is to plan ahead, leave lots of time in front of you, and encourage your employees and your workers to plan that way too. We're still developing some journey management tools to share with you in our website. They'll be coming up in the next couple of months. And so we'll encourage you to incorporate journey management into those employee and worker and driver discussions as well. So think about that. Think about how little it actually matters in terms of getting you there on time. So in the chat, maybe Deanne, do we have any answers on what people are doing when they're driving? And maybe we've got some answers coming in that people are sharing about what they see people doing on their phones. And we're going to talk a little bit about those points. So do you have some things to share?
We had a lot of comments of texting and driving, passing dangerously with no turn signals, again, distractions, texting for sure, speeding, road rage, aggressive driving, distracting, speeding. So
they're seeing a lot of the same things that our data is sharing with us too. And that makes sense. It means you're on the road, you're paying attention, and you're also observing behavior changes that are risky. Going back to the speed the speed component, we know that the state of California, which is similarly sized to the state of Texas in terms of population, they ticketed over 28,000 people last year alone who were going over 100 miles per hour, which is a category called super speed. And it's one that really hasn't emerged until recent times. When the roads became more empty, folks got excited about their ability to spread out and see what their vehicles could do. And that has created a dangerous cultural shift for us on our roadways. And that number from California exemplifies just how much we're seeing in terms of super speeding. So I'll go back now to the phone, and I want to share with you some results from Travelers Insurance. They have been conducting the same survey about every 2 years for a while, and their results from 2019 to 2021 show an increase in some of these cell phone activities. And before I share that with you, we know that people know better than texting and driving. We know this. If we put 100 people in a room, at least 95 of them know better. They know texting is dangerous. And if there's 5 that don't know that, I'm not sure where they've been living lately, that they think that texting and driving is okay and safe to do. So when we look at how people tell us that they know better and we see this behavior increasing, then we have a lot of cause for concern that our social norms are impacting that great divide. Sorry, I'm going backwards. So here's our results. Here's the 4 categories that we saw increases from 2019 to 2021 per this survey. Before the pandemic, texting or emailing was attributed by 19% of participants. And now today it's about 26%, or in 2021. Checking social media also went up from 13% to 20%. Now, you know, checking social media is just a pathway leading to the next check, to the next interaction. People may think that they're just taking a quick look, but one thing leads to another. And equally, or maybe even more upsetting, I think, is that we see people actually telling us that they're taking more pictures. They've doubled the number of people who will take pictures while driving or watch videos. And the other statistic that has doubled is in the far left bottom quartile here, that shows that people are shopping while they drive. And I think until I saw the survey results here, I didn't even know that people would shop and drive. That was a new idea, and it's a dangerous idea. So if these numbers are growing, we know that they're growing within your driver workforce as well. So now is a good time to visit with and connect with your employees to talk about how these changes have occurred and how they need to reconfigure their own habits if they're participating in these things. And one of the things that we always suggest that continues to grow in popularity is turning off your notifications so that you don't see when somebody is texting or calling you. Great idea. Put the phone entirely out of reach. Another great idea. And the insurance industry is coming up with apps, and we have one as our family. It has multiple drivers that actually pays us back when we don't touch our phone while driving. It doesn't charge us. It instead pays us back depending on the recorded number of times that we touch our phone while we're driving. And we've saved about $300 on our more recent bills. And in this time of life, when inflation is growing and the dollar is meaning less, now is a really good time to encourage people to get one of these apps, because it helps with that habit. It helps people do better because we think they want to, but it's just really compelling to reach for that phone sometimes when you hear it. And the other thing that we know employees will do if you have the conversation is let them know that it's not important to you that they pick up the phone if you call them. Now, maybe you think you've already done that, and maybe you have had that conversation, but we know that at least 40% of people surveyed indicate that their boss expects them to pick up or they feel pressured to pick up. So devise a better plan. Communicate that their safety is number one. Punctuality is nice, but it is not more important than their safety. So communicate that often and let them know that you want them to pull over safely if they can, or that they need to let you know when good times for the boss to reach the employee can be devised. Have that communication. It doesn't take more than about 30 seconds, and it can save lives. It could save bent metal crashes. It can save costs, and it can save injuries in compelling ways. And when we talk about the phone, that's always the easy go-to. The phone is causing distractions. Well, it sure is. But if you look at this piece of data that aligns all crash reports over a given period of time, we see that only the blue part represents the number of crashes that are attributed to cell phone use. So it's literally like the tip of an iceberg. We have a lot of other distractions that are reported on the scene that are still compelling people to keep their mind or their eyes or their hands off of the driving task. And these are leading to crashes. And this isn't really a new idea, but one of the most interesting surveys that Deanna and I uncovered comes from State Farm. It's about 5 years old. And it shows that as people have more crashes, they self-report that they have done these risky things at some point. We are sharing here that if somebody is represented in the gray bar, they've had one crash that was considered their fault or no fault. And they've also reported to us that they've done some of these things, and going all the way from the left, listening to a conversation, to all the way to the right, racing another vehicle. So obviously, some of these things that involve eating and driving distracted are behaviors that we see more. So in gray, they've had one crash. In red, they've had more than one crash that had no fault or was attributed to them. So what we would expect is if we asked people who'd had 5 crashes, if they engaged in these behaviors, we would see higher bars than we see on the red side. But you notice every single time we increase the number of crashes that a person has had, we also increase the activities that they've done that are distracting or dangerous or risky in some way. So there's a causal representation here, no doubt, but it helps solidify all the different ways that people can be risky and increase their chance of having a crash. These numbers are not lying to us. So when we look at norms, and we go back to that fancy word, there's a couple of different definitions that I want you to keep in mind. Moral norm is what people expect is the right thing to do. Transformative norm is when we see a shift. So the super speeder issue that I've shared with you that seems to have shifted within the pandemic as a result of the pandemic, that would be a transformative norm where we're seeing people do this more. And a descriptive norm just simply solidifies what that expectation is. So I'm going to ask you now to watch a little video clip. And this is from a movie that a lot of people will have already seen before. Here we go.
Ralphie, we're waiting. Oh, come on, Mom. Right now.
Immediately, my feet began to sweat as those two little bunnies running school a veritable hell.
Oh, isn't that cute? That is the most precious thing I've ever seen in my life.
He looks like a deranged Easter bunny.
Does not.
He does, too. He looks like a pink nightmare. Are you happy wearing that? Do you want to take it off? Tell the kid to take it off.
All right, you'll only wear it when Aunt Clara visits. Go on and take it off.
Take it off!
So as we see here with Ralphie, and this is a video that comes up as a family tradition with us year after year in my house, we see Ralphie really doesn't want to wear this because he's concerned about being a fourth grade boy and the kinds of ridicule that he'll experience if anybody knows that he's been caught in a pink bodysuit. Now, on the flip side, we know that that would be the descriptive norm, right? It's not cool to wear a pink bunny suit when you're in fourth grade. The moral norm is coming from mom, who suggests, oh, that you look really cute. You've got to try it on. This is adorable. This is a good thing to wear. Aunt Clara worked hard to make this for you. So, the video helps us kind of make to life the example of these definitions, and also gives you a little levity as you're considering the norms in your work safety culture as regarding with speeding, wearing seat belts, traveling while distracted, and even having impairment issues while an employee drives. So what I love about this, I'll share in just a minute, but we see the need, as I've mentioned before, when we're seeing the increased fatality, we see the need to identify those behaviors that a group has decided to adopt. Super speeding was an example. Eating fast food was another example. Answering calls from the boss, and the list goes on and on. And what I'm thinking you're going to be able to do better than me is list out those behaviors that you notice in your driving workforce that you feel are a gap and you want to change. And then the next step, along the lines of increasing communication with your policy and those kinds of things, you're also going to need to look at what that perception of behavior is. We knew that when we started looking at double bed trucks with a back seat, we knew that workers were less inclined to buckle up in that back seat because there was a perception of behavior that wasn't something that they needed to do, or it wasn't cool to do, or for whatever reason, we were seeing an increase in those folks in Texas that weren't buckling up in the back seat. Now, Texas is a primary enforcement state when it comes to seat belts. So everyone in the vehicle must be buckled up at all times. The driver can be cited, as well as any adult over the age of 16 if they are unbuckled. So not only is there a law that should compel them to do so, but employers should build into their policies a seatbelt mandate regardless. All that being said, there were still a lot of folks in the back seat in a worker vehicle that were not buckled up. So that's a gap. And the perception was there, the perception and error, and it needed to be addressed. So going back to Ralphie for just a minute, what has happened in recent culture since this movie was made 40 years ago is this pink bunny costume has become so popular that it's available widely across the internet in different ways. You can buy this for a costume party, for Halloween or whatever. So this lets me open up and ask Deanne a question I've never asked her before. Deanne, do anybody in your house have an adult size pink bunny costume?
Well, I am happy to report that no, we do not own an adult size bunny costume.
Okay, well, that answers an age-old question that I've been having. And if you are on the call right now and want to share that you have a pink bunny costume, I just want you to know that we're in a safe place. There is no judgment. You are welcome to share with us that you have that bunny outfit. But, probably this wasn't something that most of us expected would change and become a transformative norm that Aunt Clara started more than 50 or 60 years ago in this plot. So having said that in a light way, transformation can occur. Even in the most crazy examples like this, transformation can occur. It has to be studied. It has to have a lot of effort. And there are a lot of folks that have to be involved in that. So I want to go into some of the things that you want to be consistent about in your workplace culture that help you lift and encourage norms to change. Values are very important, and they come from the top, and they also come from the leaders that are not necessarily titled as such. So knowing who those people are is really helpful for you. Is setting the tone that an employee is not supposed to answer the phone when the boss calls comes from you, but it's in practice throughout those employees that are leaders as well. So making connections is really valuable if you're going to alter or uplift your safety culture and the safety as people get on the roads for you. Consistency with your policies is something that we say consistently, and we support programmatically resources that can help you do that without a lot of development on your end. So we encourage that consistency, and we encourage that ongoing communication. And some of the ways that we have resources, if you're new to us, that will help you do that is going to txdrivingconcern.org. You can see a multiple set of resources, from videos to posters to all kinds of ways that we have developed the riskiest behaviors in deliverables for you with your employees. And one of the things that has become really popular, that's fairly new and trending really well, is the ways that we have for people to interact during unscheduled times. If you have a worker that you think is showing up to work drowsy, is not considering sleep as a priority, that kind of thing, that's an example of how you can use our e-learning or something in our LMS to direct them to have a little bit more information about that topic in about a 20-minute compact on-demand situation. And we know that these things are really popular with employers that are using them, and we encourage you to look at that when you're on our website. The other thing that we have are safety talks, and this goes back to the connection again. When you're with your employees, or some fleet managers are with their fleets, that kind of thing is a good time to have a safety talk that can substantially uplift what people are considering is safe in your culture. We have safety coach cards that can do that. They're about the size of a business card. They can fit in a badge. And we also have traffic safety huddles, which go for about 10 to 15 minutes. They cover a piece of paper front and back. They're also available on the website. So if you have them on your phone, you can use them that way as well. We have 22 traffic safety huddles right now, and we have about 109 safety coach cards. So you're not going to run out of opportunities to discuss these risky driving and how to change these norms. And the other thing we have in plenty supply are topical posters that address these things, and the traffic tabloid that comes out every month with our e-list. So be sure that you're capturing some time or posting those traffic tabloids or using some of the other resources that we have. You can download them yourself if you're in another state, or if you're here in Texas. Let us know what you need and we'll send it out to you free of charge. And finally, one of the best ways to stay connected, to communicate safety, is to engage with some of our platforms. And this helps us as well because it grows our reach. Every time you like, share, comment, we know that our reach expands to other folks that need these messages as well. And becoming engaged in social media platforms is a nice way for your workforce to get ongoing messaging, whether they're on or off the job. So this is an easy ask to bring some safety to them. And Deanne, I'm just going to turn it back to you now and see if we've covered everything that we intended today, or if you think we have some questions that we need to answer.
Well, I think we have. I want to give anyone the opportunity to ask any last minute questions. I know I did see that someone asked about the safety talks, if they come in Spanish. Right now, they don't. We are looking at what resources we are going to translate into Spanish. We do have some posters and things like that that are currently in Spanish. The safety talks, though, are not in Spanish right now, but that doesn't mean that we won't be translating some into Spanish.
Well, and Deanne, I'm so glad somebody asked that, because it's an exciting time to be engaging in creating bilingual opportunities. And we are doing that by expanding first in our pieces that are simpler to translate. The posters, we have done some already, and you can access those on the website. If you don't see them readily, just email us and we'll give you a link that'll share that with you. What we're also doing is looking at our traffic huddles and our safety coach cards next. It's a little more complicated and a little bit more costly to translate those, but they are in the works. We will be continuing to address Spanish translation in this fiscal year and the fiscal years to come, so that our goal is that everything is available in some form or fashion to be translated in Spanish. And sometimes those translations can occur through other resources that are online, which are apt to do that and better at it. But look for us to continue that. And again, thank you for asking that question, because it gives us an opportunity to answer it in a way that everybody can reach.
Absolutely. Any other questions as we're getting ready to exit? I have put the evaluation link in the chat. If you can grab that as you're leaving and put that, open that up and just complete. It's 5 questions. They're very simple and quick to answer. And I'll just give just a quick couple of more seconds to see if anybody has any questions. We do want to thank
one thing Deanne is really good to do, and Mike Gazelle will be doing as our new program manager also, is sending out a post email. Look for that, because we'll be sharing some other resources and links that may have been discussed here with you at that point. It usually takes a couple of days for us to wrap that up, but we have a new blog that's coming out from Mike Gazelle that I'm hoping that we can include in that resource, in that email of resources as well, because it actually addresses some of the social norms that we talked about here today.
Absolutely. I will be following up, and it'll have some additional information, and I'll be looking through some of your comments and adding things in there that and hopefully answering some of the questions or additional comments or things that you guys are posting in the chat as well. So be watching for that in the next day or two. We do want to thank Cindy for all the information that she provided today. We also want to thank all of you for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, so we appreciate you spending a few minutes of your morning with us. And with that, that concludes our presentation this morning. And again, be checking out some of our coming up presentations. We have some following up in February, some great webinars. And so be checking us out and registering for the next webinars that we have coming up. And so we look forward to you joining us next time. And with that, have a great, safe day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.